Good afternoon, everybody. This is Mellissa Thomas with Florida National News, coming to you with a different show today. Of course, it's Wednesday, so it is actually FNN Business Talk today. And today we're actually going to interview OriginClear CEO Riggs Eckleberry. Now, this is something very different for our audience. This is a company you may not have heard of. So I want to give you a little bit of information about OriginClear so you guys have a better idea of who we're going to be talking to in a minute. Riggs Eckleberry is the CEO and co-founder of the company. Now, OriginClear is a company that focuses on wastewater management or wastewater treatment. They use machines, and their niche is actually point of use water treatment. They're actually able to bring their equipment to the point of use and go ahead and treat the water right there on site. So that's a pretty important and pretty key function to be able to provide to other businesses. Of course, is something this big is a business-to-business company. So we're going to be talking to Riggs Eckleberry in a moment. He's taking his time to come on live, so he'll join us momentarily. Here's a little bit about Mr. Eckleberry. He is, of course, the founder and CEO of the company, and they're delivering water solutions for industrial customers worldwide. It is based in Los Angeles with operations in Texas, Virginia, and China. And OriginClear has developed and licensed an invention that treats industrial and agricultural wastewater with very little energy and no chemicals. And we'll get into the details about that during the interview. So be sure to stay tuned. So industrial users can treat their water right there where they use it. That's the point of use thing. They package, they pre-package it for the treatment systems. And this system has a life cycle of up to 100 years or more. So this is great news for companies that are looking to clean up their wastewater as a result of their processes. And OriginClear has clients in multiple industries, including pharmaceutical and medical labs, hospitals, schools and colleges, the hospitality industry, military bases and embassies, and the list goes on. Now, Mr. Eckleberry himself, Riggs came to the water industry from 25 years in technology. He was specializing in commercializing breakthrough technologies. So during the dot-com era, he worked on a series of different tech successes, such as Quarterdex Clean Sweep, security software vendor Panda Software, and the sale of companies to EarthWeb, Be Free, and Bell South. Who remembers Bell South? That was a throwback, right? I remember being a Bell South customer myself with my family. Now, just prior to founding what is now OriginClear, over about 13 years ago, he helped drive a security software company, Cyber Defender, to an IPO on the NASDAQ as its president and chief operating officer. So we're going to find out a little bit more about Mr. Eckleberry in a moment. We're still waiting for him to join us. So in the meantime, guys, be sure to stay tuned. We're going to take a quick commercial break and come back. And before I go to commercial break, someone did leave a comment, so I did want to shout you guys out. Thank you to Transmedia Group for tuning in and leaving the comments saying you're looking forward to the interview. So am I. So this is going to be a very informative one, guys. If this is something you're curious about, want to learn more about, this is definitely the interview for you. So stay tuned. We're going to take a quick commercial break and come right back.
At Duke Energy, we deliver electricity and so much more, like free home energy assessments, rebates for energy-saving improvements, payment options to help you better manage your budget, and even bill credits for helping the community use less energy. So no matter what you're doing, we can help you make better energy choices every day. It's just another way we bring power to your life. How much can you save?
All right, guys, we are back. So far, Mr. Eckleberry is on his way onto the live broadcast. For right now, we're going to leave one more comment. Thank you so much, Transmedia Group, for engaging with us. We appreciate you. Water is life. Indeed, indeed, indeed. And this is a YouTube comment, so thank you so much for being in both places. Appreciate you, appreciate you. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching wherever you're watching, by all means, set up a watch party if you guys want to. Invite your friends to join us for this particular interview today. And FNN Business Talk is our Wednesday business show. So this is 1 p.m. Eastern time. A lot of our interview shows happen at 1 p.m. Eastern. And of course, here on Florida National News, coming up tomorrow, you'll see me with the FNN Politics and Power at 1 p.m. And on Friday, our lovely Jenny Rosario de Casiano will be back for her Entertainment Buzz live show at 1 p.m. Now we're still waiting for Mr. Eckleberry to come on board. But in the meantime, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about him as a person, he is actually someone who was the son of a businessman. So he has that business history. Entrepreneurship is something that is very common for him. He's used to being in the business world. And here he is. We get to bring him on now formally. All right. How you doing, Ms. Eckleberry?
Well, I'm doing great. Thank you very much. After a few tech issues, I am now here.
No problem. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. We appreciate you.
Thank you. It's an honor.
Awesome. So, I did a brief bio kind of introducing our audience to you, letting them know about the work you were doing during the .com era. Kind of flesh that out a little bit more before we get into the details of OriginClear. Just kind of want to give our audience that origin story, if you will, pun not intended, but want to let them know where you started from. Go ahead.
Well, I was kind of, my dad was an executive all over the world. And so I grew up pretty much everywhere. I don't have any friends from school I don't even know what that means.
Wow.
But coming out of high school, I fell in love with the nonprofit. And as such, I ended up being, eventually started running large ships and spent some of my career in the South Pacific on the cargo ships as both a captain and a first officer. Eventually realized I really wanted to be around people. I wanted to make a change. Came back to the US, wound up in New York in those crazy 80s where for the first time it was, by the way, it was not a pickup line to say you were in computers at the time. It did not. It was like, yeah, okay. I'd say, I do Unix software, and they're like, what? So only later did the ladies realize that the rich guys are the guys who played in that space. But we had a lot of fun in the 80s, computerizing companies for the very first time. And I moved on to the 90s where really computers moved from computing, that is calculators essentially, to communications machine. And that was the internet. And it was, for me, a revelation. It was an amazing time. For me, the .com was a period of trying to get something done amid all the craziness, learning how to bring about disruption. And especially after 2000, when we had a chance to really build things. And so that's what we managed to do, is build interesting companies like yellowpages.com and so forth. Mm-hmm. Finally, I got to the point where I felt I could be a CEO, and a particular fund agreed with me. And they said, but Riggs, you're not going to be doing tech. You're going to be doing algae. And I'm like, okay. And that was the beginning of what was originally known as Origin Oil, meaning the original oil, algae. Right. And let me tell you something. It was sexy. I was, Stuart Varney called me, I'll call you Algae Man. It was like a who knew kind of thing. CNBC, CNN, everybody was all over it. The only problem is that fracking caught up, and pretty soon it was the petroleum. The price of petroleum was too low to compete with. And algae became overnight a science experiment. Now I had a public company, I had a lot of people invested, and I couldn't just go, well, I think I'll do something else. So we were very fortunate in that we found out that the harvesting of algae is a lot like cleaning up dirty water, very similar. And we managed to pivot our technology over to the water space. And that was the beginning of OriginClear, to clarify water. But it was no longer as sexy. People talk a big game about water, but they really don't want to know the details, like sewage, too much information.
Right.
So the water industry, number one, doesn't change very fast. Number two, the general public does not consider it much of a topic. It's like, well, my toilet flushes, what's the big deal? But there are big problems in water. I hate to say it, but there are big problems in water that really are not being spoken about. Only 1/5 of the dirty water in the world is being treated at all. And the remaining 4/5 is just like, well, whatever. And even so, it's $1 trillion industry. So $1 trillion industry that's only treating 1/5 of the water means that there's potential to grow. So we spent all these years trying to find a way to break the status quo And I have to say that the virus is really what precipitated the change we were looking for.
Gotcha. And we'll get into that detail a little bit later in the interview for sure, because we do have a clip that you recently recorded about that. But yeah, didn't want to spoil it too much for our audience just yet. But thank you for sharing. Sure. Thank you for sharing the origin story though, because when I read your bio and saw that sort of crossover from tech into water treatment, I was like, wait a minute, like how do you bridge that particular gap? So thank you for sharing that for sure. Appreciate that. And I mean,
well, I was accustomed to bridging since I'd been on, a ship captain. So whatever.
Right. Absolutely. Right. And I mean, that was actually one of the questions that I had, given the different industries that OriginClear is involved in, the hotel industry, hospitality, dealing with schools, dealing with municipal and, public utilities, things like that. Do you guys also serve ships as well? Do you also treat the water on ships?
Well, they need to ballast water, as when they pump out all that dirty water, they really need to clean it. It's still an early stage thing. Generally, that's the kind of contract that goes to the very biggest companies. And here's what's interesting about water. There is big water, and it used to be only big water, but now there's such a thing as decentralized water, which you might call the microgrid of water treatment, which is the fastest growing part of the water industry. And frankly, we're not going to see more hyper huge treatment plants in America. Where are you going to put them? How are you going to finance them? Who's got the 20 years to wait? So it's all going to be point of use treatment from now on, just the same way as you have, cell phones, and you have, PCs replacing mainframes. And of course, the energy is a great example of that, self-sufficiency in energy. So more and more self-sufficiency in water is the big new trend. And that's where really we're specializing. We specialize in modular, pre-packaged, prefab water systems that go to local businesses, not the hyper municipal, although we do have municipals as customers. But the bigger it is, the more it goes to the really, really large water companies.
And how many of those companies are there out there, given that kind of scope of service?
Well, it was cool because a wastewater report just came out last week, and it listed the top 6, and we were among them. It's kind of cool. But so we are starting to get noticed because it's a niche that is really more and more important. But people like Veolia, which was founded in 1853, by the way, so it's been around. Wow. American Water Works, and this is a company that, for its budget for acquiring companies alone, is $1 billion a year. That tells you how big they are. Right? Huge. Evoqua is another one. There's some really big players. They're wonderful companies that do a great job. But it's a funny thing about tech generations is that really the next generation of tech, we saw that in disk drives, where they went from 28-inch to 14-inch down to 7-inch down to 3.5 quarter-inch, and then all the way down to nothing, is that each generation got smaller and was disdained by the previous company because it would destroy their sales figures. These things are cheaper. And literally the next generation came from the engineers that were basically ignored in the old company, and that created the next. And that's kind of what we're the birth of the new, smallest, beautiful water treatment, which is going to be, I believe, the future of water treatment in the world, and a way that we can actually steward the water better.
I like that you use the word steward there. That's actually a great way to look at it. And I did want to ask that question, like given you guys' work in the different industries, is that your company's mission? Is it more so from a service standpoint, or is it more so from a commerce standpoint? Because of course, just legally speaking, any for-profit business, like, that is their thing. Their responsibility by law is to enrich their stockholders. But for you personally, is it more so from a place of a mission, especially given your history with your dad being able to travel across the world?
That's a very good question. And in fact, so many of the stockholders OriginClear stockholders say, Riggs, I'm invested. I want to make money, but please, what you're doing is a mission. We're with you. They're incredibly patient. They're the most supportive investors I could ask for. So yes, there's a sense of mission in what we do. And really, there's this 4 big pieces to our business that have kind of evolved over time. The original piece was this core filterless technology that we evolved to harvest algae, right? You can't use a butterfly net. You have to use something else, which in this case, it was electrical pulses, which cause the algae to clump up. And we do the same thing with solids and water and sewage. And that is our original electro-water separation technology. We licensed that all over the world. But that was the thing we found the water industry was not really excited about acquiring. So instead, we actually went ahead and acquired an operating company in Dallas, Texas, which makes machines and equipment on a custom basis. So you're a power plant, you need to clean your reject water or cooling water. We'll make it for you, $1 million contract. But those contracts take a huge long time to sign. So it'll take a year, right? And people used to say, when I first got in the water industry, they said, oh, the water equipment business is very low margin. I go, how could that possibly be? Well, it's because it takes a year of staff time to do these deals, and that erodes your margins. So then we went, okay, what can we do better? And that's when we invested in a technology called Modular Water Systems. It's basically a black box technology that water system in a box. You can build it in the factory, package it up, roll it out, drop it in the ground, put it to work. And that roll in, roll out technology is very important for a local brewery that, they're not in the water business. They want to make beer. Right? So I want a solution. I want it in a box, plug it in. Yeah. Put it in the corner over there. And problem goes away. Right. So it's a different mentality from the professional water industry, who are very happy to make a career out of treating water. That's what they do. Well, I guess what in business, water treatment is not a core business, and they just they want to get it out of the way, and B, they would like to see if they can make some money with it, which sometimes they can. So that was the third big piece, was the modular water systems technology, which really is unique in the world. And then the final piece was, okay, we shortened the amount of time it takes to deliver these machines, but it still was taking too much time on the front end to do the deals. And we're like, here comes the pandemic. The pandemic, let's go back to 1918 when we had the Spanish flu, which, by the way, was not Spanish, it was Chinese. And the Spanish flu killed between 50 and 100 million people in 2 years. It was dreadful. Why will this flu, quote unquote flu, I'm not going to argue whether it's a flu or not, but it's flu-like. And how come it's not going to kill 50 to 100 million people? One word: sanitation. We have flushing toilets. We have running water, right? We have better hygiene. And so the world is safer, but it can be safer yet. And I submit to you that the world is no longer going to tolerate a high death toll from any flu. And so we're going to keep seeing shutdowns unless we really get serious about sanitation. So that back in the early part of this year, when we saw Wuhan shut down, we're like, uh-oh, Houston, we have a problem. And we then realized that we had to speed up the pace of water treatment in the world in order to start really, taking responsibility for the horrendous state of sewage in places like India, for example. So that's when we evolved this idea of, wait a minute, what about if we transformed funding of water treatment? And we had a realization, like, wait a minute, as an investor, you and I can invest in oil and gas, real estate, solar. There's ways to do it. It's all kinds of tax benefits and this and that. It's called alternative investment. You invest in an asset that you own and you get a yield. Some would argue this is the only way to go, given the way that stock market's crazy as can be, is to invest in tangible assets that make money. Okay. Water has never done that because it was too big, but now it's small. So guess what? How about we get ordinary investors, people who want to put in $50,000, $100,000, or group together into a syndicate to do $1 million deal, to directly fund water equipment and bypass Wall Street. And all of a sudden we found people love the idea. They're like, I want to invest in water. And the reason is very clear. Water doesn't crash. The price of water is not going to go down. It only gives more and more in demand. It's never had a serious crash. It's desperately needed. It's life. It needs to be clean. 2.6 billion people in the world need access to clean water. So there's a huge mission ahead. Lots of demand, and so people are in love with the idea. And so we created something called Investor Water, which is a marketplace where people will ultimately be able to invest in water equipment. Now, big disclaimer. We're not offering that today. There's all kinds of regulation around that. What we're doing is we're building that capability. We call it an Airbnb for water. It's the same kind of concept. And so people can invest in OriginClear, either by buying the stock, or if they're accredited, they can own one of our corporate bonds, which helps us build this marketplace. And my expectation is that in 2021, people will be able to, for the first time ever, invest in water equipment as ordinary individuals. And I think that's going to be the engine, because eventually it'll go international. OriginClear all by itself will never fix the water industry. Not even the biggest guys can. It's $1 trillion industry, and it's tiny. So compared to what it could be. So how do we transform it? Marketplaces, right? You make it possible for people to meet, 200 home development project in Alpharetta, Georgia, that's off the grid, and they can't connect to sewage. They need their own closed circuit sewage treatment system. Great. Here's an investor. Get it done. Thank you very much. $250,000. Great return for the investor. The HOA, the Home Owners Association, makes out fine. Everybody's happy. Check one off. And we think that can scale up incredibly well.
Wow. That was a mouthful. All right, guys. So I'm gonna come back from this commercial break, and then we're gonna kind of dissect that just a little bit more for some folks that probably flew over their heads. But it sounds like an opportunity worth researching and learning more about. So, guys, make sure you stay tuned. We're gonna take another quick commercial break and come right back.
Thank you.
It takes experience to know the difference in property values. For example, this business is not the same as this business. And this house is definitely not the same as this house. And this, well, this is definitely not the same as this. And that's why it's important to have someone who understands true property appraisals to help our community grow, while making sure everyone pays their fair share. Because experience matters. Re-elect Rick Singh for Orange County Property Appraiser.
All right, guys, we are back. Yeah, we are back with Riggs Eckleberry, CEO of OriginClear. We know you're a busy man.
Never too busy to speak to you, and you're so kind.
Thank you, appreciate it. So yeah, in a little bit more layman's terms, and I mean, you actually covered a lot of what was in the clip. So thank you for, going ahead and sharing. I didn't ruin
the clip now.
Well, you covered it, so we don't necessarily have to run it. But like you mentioned everything that I was going to run in it. So you broached the idea of that sort of micro concept of investing in water. I did want to ask you, how do you balance that with sort of that the common conventional statement or maxim that water is scarce? Like, how do you kind of present it as an investment vehicle for a resource that's considered scarce?
Well, water is scarce, you could say, except remember that only a tiny minority of the dirty water is being treated, and the rest is being thrown away. We're being incredibly wasteful when it comes to water. Look at recycling rates. We are talking about, for example, Israel recycles almost 90% of its water. The second in the world is Spain with 20%. The US is at 1%, right? So what we said, now, why is it 1%? Because we have these hyper huge water treatment plants, and when it goes downstream to that plant, it's not coming back. They don't have two-way pipes coming back to the homes. So, right. But if we're treating it at the home or the business or the industry or the agriculture, then we can reuse it there. And that way we get more usage out of it. We get recycling rates go way up, number one. So more water available because local treatment. More water available because more water is cleaned up and not made dirty. And more importantly, there's a huge amount of water that is considered subpar. Maybe it's a little briny, for example, or a lot of aquifers, groundwater reservoirs are polluted. If they were cleaned up, they could be used. The Ogallala aquifer, the aquifers in California are all messed up because of petroleum pollution. So, there's lots of water available. People talk to me about desalination, but I would say that is a last step. Why? Because it's super expensive for energy and for money. There's other things we can do.
And that's actually one of the questions I wanted to ask you, because when I first began to hear about the scarcity of water, I was like, the Pacific Ocean is huge. Just as a layperson, not fully in touch with the science per se, but I was like, we have access to our oceans. Don't get me wrong. That doesn't exempt us from being responsible. That keyword that you used earlier about being stewards of the water that we're using. But thank you for breaking down desalination and why that's not necessarily the best first option. Definitely appreciate you explaining that. So given the point of use, then, is it a matter for your company? Is it a matter of increasing the number of facilities that are using your technology to be able to do that? Is that basically the ultimate goal?
Sure, but let's start with this marketplace idea. Now, if you, as a water company, you represent an end user, like let's say that HOA in Alpharetta, Georgia, and you're the water company. You go, oh, let's list this up on Investor Water because we think that there can be an investor. We put it up there. Now, it gets when it gets listed, we look at the offering and go, okay, did this water company propose the right technology? If they did, oh, Georgia, well, and probably is our friends AdEdge and near Atlanta, and they know what they're doing, so fine, they got it together. Another company might not have the mobile technology down, and so we go, no problem, you can license ours, right? So either you've got the stuff that's good, or you can use ours, which is fine too. And so it gives us the opportunity to kind of be a company store, right? Here's the marketplace, have fun, may do deals. And oh, by the way, if you lack the technology, we can license this modular tech. We have our chief engineer is a guru of the water industry. We'll be happy to consult and of course get paid for it. And we're off and rolling.
Got you. And that's actually a perfect segue into one of the other questions I had for you. Kind of talk about that program, because you guys welcome licensees and partnerships, and kind of talk about the difference between the two, because I think there's a slight difference. There
truly is. The licensing that we do has been classically our original filterless technology, the zapping the organic molecules. And that has ended up being embedded. A very good example is if you go to our website and you'll find that, for example, we've got some videos about what we did in Spain with a company there that's treating all that hog farm manure to turn it into good organic fertilizer on one side and good clean water on the other. And our technology is embedded, right? So the licensees of our core technology are strong enough that they can actually use it as a building block. We don't sell it as a standalone product. So that's licensing. Then partnerships. Well, for example, we're entering a partnership right now with, I'll be talking about it tomorrow on my, I do a weekly CEO briefing.
Right.
At 8 p.m. Eastern. And if you go to originclear.com/CEO, you can sign up. And I'll be having a talk show with the people who run a very interesting company that's number 3 in the Florida top 250 called Equity and Help. Equity and Help is a company that buys up blocks of distressed properties, and then ordinary investors can invest in them to let families that could not otherwise get a home buy a home if they agree to rehabilitate the property. That's their deal. Like, okay, you got terrible credit. That's fine. You can own this home for less than the rent, but you're going to have to put some sweat in. Everybody wins. The property becomes more appreciated. The investor wins. Everybody. It's a fantastic thing, which is why they've grown 3,000% in the last 2 years. So the reason why they're becoming a partner is that their direct investment model, we believe, is portable to enable the compliance for ours. So, and they're excited. They were literally, when they came along, they said, "Oh my gosh, we've been looking." The next thing we were going to do was water. We did real estate. Now we're on the Inc. 500, we're in the Florida 250. And now we wanted to do water. They have a concept called philanthro investing. In other words, investing for good. And we want to do a water philanthro investor. And we're so amazed to find you. And I went, marriage made in heaven. So that's a partnership where we're actually going to gain a huge amount of footprint internationally, because they literally have thousands and thousands of these deals happening all over the world. So great company. That's an example of these partnerships that we do.
Awesome. And to find out, where can people go to find out more about either becoming a licensee or becoming a partner?
Sure. So OriginClear.com is very easy to find it. If you want to be a licensee, remember that you need to have a clue. You're not going to buy a product. You're going to have to take our technology and then stitch it into what you've got already. So that's really for what we call original equipment manufacturers, OEMs.
Okay.
To become a partner of ours, to help us, for example, build the marketplace, to invest and so forth. There's easy links to get that done. I'm really, really interested in making common cause with people who are trying to solve this big, big problem. Other water companies, for example. Right now, we have this very brief chance to transform the water industry so that the world does not come to a screeching halt every time a virus makes the rounds, right?
Right.
That needs to happen fast. It can't take 25 years. So how do we do it? We're going to have to roll out this marketplace, do it quickly, and we welcome all the help we can get, investors, partners, you name it. We're super excited about this. We are in a way grateful for the pandemic really having brought us to our senses and go, you know what? Enough complacency. We got to start getting busy. And I think we are.
Very well said. That was what I like to call a mic drop moment. So guys, if you do want to learn more, I have the drop the mic. We do have the links on the bottom of the screen there. So OriginClear.com if you want to find out more about the company. OriginClear.com/CEO if you want to sign up for his weekly. Is it kind of like a webinar or like an interview kind of thing, like a talk show?
Right, exactly. It's kind of like this. It's a Zoom show, and I bring on either members of my exec team or outside people. We run clips. We keep it exciting. We keep it quick. We know that we lose people after 30 minutes. We know that. I watch the numbers on Zoom dwindle. Like, okay, I think I hit my maximum. But it's fun and it's well worth doing. You can get to know the company better. We do it every week. We've done 69 of these weekly briefings. And so,
wow,
bring it on.
Awesome. And we're starting to wrap up as well, because we know the same thing. The 30-minute mark is kind of the tricky mark. But I did want to talk a little bit about, just to let our audience know, the affiliations that OriginClear has, particularly, with certain organizations in California, and how you guys have been working to kind of reduce the carbon footprint. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, in fact, I've literally, not in this picture is all the boxes, because I've been moving in. I moved from Florida. My wife and I moved from LA to Florida just recently, and we're in Tampa Bay area. So is my chief operating officer. We're establishing, we're going to move operations to Pinellas County. And what we're learning as we've moved is this tremendous need. The phosphate industry is not only creating a problem, but they know it and they want to do something about it. And so they reached out, we've been talking to them. The whole algae problem, we have a PR agency called Transmedia, and they've been very, very helpful in connecting us with all the players. So I think that the whole Florida situation is going to be very fruitful for us in terms of alliances, because Florida is kind of a lab. Can we handle the nitrates, the phosphates, the algae, all the stuff that's destroying coral reefs and so forth? And if we can do it right here, then it can happen anywhere in the country. So I'm excited. And we really want to connect up more with like-minded people, especially in the Southeast, where so much of the action's happening, frankly.
Right, right. Awesome. And then very lastly, just to give our audience a little bit more of that sort of human side of you, just kind of talk about perhaps the most meaningful part of the work that you do, and then at least one project that OriginClear was a part of that had a great impact on you, that had like the greatest impact on you.
Thank you. Well, what I love is when people reach out, like, yeah, we can always dial for dollars and go find people, but when they reach out to us and they go, that thing that you do, I want that, I want that. And it happened, for example, a few months ago with a very high level hotel group, and they'd seen that we had modular systems, and they say, yeah, I want one of those modular things. And it turned out that they were looking at pure water, not just in those bottles on the bureau, but everywhere, in the shower, in the kitchen, you name it. The entire water supply in the hotel would be pure and highly, healthy. They wanted to do that. They also wanted to treat the gray water, that is the shower water and so forth, to water the shrubbery. And they wanted to also treat the water going out to the municipality. They wanted to do it all. And I'm happy to say that that is finally happening. We are beginning to work. They literally are finally at the contract stage with us. And I think that we can't unfortunately talk about which hotel chain it is, but they are one of the most admired in the world for the quality of what they do. And they have adopted our mantra of, do it yourself water treatment for better quality, better carbon mitigation, all these good reasons. And so we're very proud of that. And that, I think, when people put up their hand and say, I want what you've got, and then we deliver it, that to me it's a great moment.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, because that also answered one of my other questions, which is, when you do your water treatment, does it only stop at irrigation quality? Because, even here locally, doing tours of different water treatment plants, usually it stops at irrigation. I don't usually hear about when the water is able to be treated to the point where it is fit for human consumption again, or even fit to use as shower water. So I did want to get that kind of question from you. So thank you.
Well, there's a psychological issue, and it came up in San Diego, where the term toilet to tap came up. And toilet to tap is a very unfortunate term, because people instinctively recoil from the idea, even though all water is recycled. There's not a drop of water on this planet that hasn't been used over and over again, because that's the way it is. Nonetheless, people have a problem. Like, you mean the stuff that went in my toilet's coming back in my... So it's not, it's not readily accepted. What I think you're right is that most use of gray water is for irrigation. And what we try and do is improve the incoming virgin water, the water coming from the municipality, which is not great. Water quality, if you go, there's the EWG, Environmental Working Group. If you go to their website, put in your zip code, it will tell you the water that you have in your zip code, and you'll be like, really? Oh my God, I'm drinking this. I don't think so. And pretty soon you buy yourself a nice little under sink water unit, because it's a scary thing. So treating that incoming water is important. Reusing the water that you've used. We have projects where we're reusing black water, which is the black water. Thank you. And that is doable, but it's a technical challenge. And then finally is treating the water going to the municipality. Now, why is that important? Because when the water goes dirty down to the city, it releases gases and it creates a carbon problem. And so if you treat it right where you are, we've done a case study where, sure enough, it reduces the carbon footprint, which is unexpected for water treatment, isn't it? Right.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for breaking all of that down for us and kind of giving us a peek into that industry. Because like you said, most folks are, they have an idea, but not the details of it. So thank you so much for coming on the show. We appreciate you. And I'm going to run this one more time, guys. If you want to find out more information about OriginClear, if you want to catch Riggs Eckleberry's weekly show, we'll call it that. The link for it is there. And the information about the marketplace, that is there as well, www.oc.gold/offering. That is there as well. But thank you so much, Mr. Eckleberry, for being on our show. We appreciate you, and the door is open. So any newer projects that OriginClear is working on, by all means, just let us know, and we'll be glad to have you back on here.
It'd be such a pleasure. Thank you for giving me this time and for the wonderful questions you asked.
No problem. Thank you. We appreciate you. All right, guys. Yeah, take care.
Goodbye.
Yep. All right, guys. So thank you for tuning in, those of you that did watch. And I did want to do a quick shout out to Ms. Donna Hall for watching. Thank you so much for the comment that you left there. Thanks for watching me. Appreciate you. And, thanks one more time to Riggs Eckleberry for coming through on the show today for FNN Business Talk. And as I mentioned, guys, this is our Wednesday show. So you have a bit of a flavor for every day of the week, pretty much. You have our daily evening news rundown that takes place at 5 p.m. Eastern every single day. So you will see me again later today at 5 p.m. for the evening news rundown, where I'll run down the top stories of the day, give you your nice news briefing. And tomorrow I will be back. It is Thursday, so I'll be back at 1 p.m. with the FNN Politics and Power series for your Thursday edition. And for the evening news rundown tomorrow, Jamesia Stoudemire will be back with the entertainment 4 for 4 for you. So she'll bring your top 4 entertainment news stories. And on Friday, as I mentioned at the start of this show, Jenny will be back with the entertainment buzz, where she'll be interviewing Juvan Victoria, beautiful singer and model. So she'll be giving you that jam-packed interview. And of course, Friday is the jam-packed day. So there's Jenny at 1, there's me at 5. And then on Friday, Casey's back at 8 p.m. with the FNN Sports Take. Now, if you guys haven't done so yet, be sure to like us, subscribe, follow us, all that fun jazz. You know where to find us. We're on Facebook. You'll find us at Florida National News, at FNN News TV, or at FNN News Live. You can subscribe and click the bell on YouTube. We're at Florida National News there as well. And follow us on Instagram. You'll find us there at Florida National News as well. We wanted to be as easy to find for you guys as possible. And lastly, if you are someone who's a small business and you want to advertise with us, you see that we run ads on our show. So please be sure to email us at ads@floridanationalnews.com to find out more. But thank you guys for tuning in. I'll be back at 5 p.m. with the evening news rundown. In the meantime, have a great rest of your afternoon. Take care.